Hi, this is Will your Werewolf, and this is Werewolf, the podcast, episode 34. Captured by the police. Now, I like to think myself as a bit of an artist, so sometimes I get lost in my art. So here we go with another story. First part of the series, Art Matters. Currently, I was working on the most beautiful, bloody mural on the back bedroom wall of this shitty apartment. Sorry. I'd been doing my artwork using a young family in the flats. Working in my wolfed out werewolf form opens up such a different sensual range that I often get lost in the work that I am doing. The other great thing about being in my wolfy form is that I am so much stronger. This means that the human palette is easier with which to work. The piece was yet again a veritable masterpiece. Of course, I would say that because I was making it, but this werewolf is an honest werewolf, and it was incredible. Blood and ichor can be so thrilling when, worked with correctly. Sadly, one of the brats had got out of the door unbeknownst to me. Fuck my life. He was covered in blood and snot and was slightly upset at being coated by his own parents. I mean, it was my fault that I'd got distracted by my work and he'd escaped, but I had created one of the most beautiful pieces on that apartment wall and didn't really care about his absence, to be honest. I mean, the work was Jackson Pollock-esque, big, bold, and of course in all the bloody shades of red a body can contain. Also, as a wolf, the work was mentally percussive, especially because I could use my sense of smell. It was miasmic, you might say, or is it may say, or who cares? Arterial sprays accented the magnolia of the walls. I mean, it was a little more technical than spray painting with a can, but a very pleasing effect could be got with a sharp blade and a carotid artery. You start with the art of controlling a fighting, mewling paintbrush. You have to get them to the point of easy compliance. This typically takes some level of beating to stupefy them or enforce terror to break them. I mean, you can't have them being too vocal and distracting or, movie abouty. Art is a serious thing to do, and you have to be careful with your paint pots at this point, because what I've found out is if you hit them too hard, they die, and then they're pretty useless. It is so fucking tricky using a live paintbrush that moves of its own volition, and they tend to be sizable as well. That doesn't help. Luckily, I am a big, strong werewolf, or this type of work may not be possible. When using humans for art, you also have a limited time to do your allotted work. I've learnt to work backwards with the details. Fine pinpricks to arteries give you a finely detailed spray with which to do the outlines and fine work, even though the body's struggling at this early stage, making them tougher to control because they tend to be, adrenaline pumped and wiggly. This slows down as you cut more and more deeply. They bleed longer and the blood leaves the body slower and it has less power. Initially the blood leaves the system so quickly that you have to work fast, but I find the white noise of the crying and the screaming helps me focus on my design at this stage. The noise settles me as they orally give away their lives for my art. I mean, this painting had been an improvised piece, but it looked amazing. I mean, it looked delicious. I mean, literally delicious. True ruination in red. Those shadows on the wall would teach the ignorant, if seen, for the truth that they are, which is bloody ignorant. Well, we should really return to the issue at hand, the lack of care shown. As I said, one of the little shits had got out to make others aware of its plight in the building. I saw him go, but to be honest, I didn't care. My work was much more important to finish, and I did not need another bottle of blood, especially such a little one. Really not worth opening the pot. I noticed him go but carried on with my work. I held the youngest child by his ankles, dangling, wiggling and crying. I tried to explain to him the beauty of what he would be part of, but he just wouldn't fucking relax. The selfish little shit would just not. So it was with utmost satisfaction that I dashed its head against the wall to make an accented line across the piece. It took several hard swipes to get the effect I wished for, but the work was now complete once the kid was limp and dead. I dropped the husk of what was once life and raised my hands to my head in utter bliss. You'll probably never see it, but the tears it created and the emotions it engendered in me were phenomenal. The gore I smelled on my paws added to the heady high, and I absent-mindedly sucked my fingers clean. Now, other issues had started to arise from my lack of care. There were fucking sirens and the whopping sounds of blades of a helicopter. The authorities, I assume, had arrived in mass, and I only noticed the amplified voice after I'd relaxed to comprehend my work. I so get in the zone, you know. I think they call it like a flow state. That combined with my over-appreciation of my art meant that I had not considered what was happening in the outside world. The noise and the voice were now noticed and extremely distracting. It was so fucking irritating. Once you notice it, you can't ignore it again. Like, you know, when you get a hangnail on your claw, it would have to be dealt with. All that "come out" and "give up" bollocks. It got to such an annoying point that I walked to the window and opened it, you know, just to ask them to quieten down. I needed time with my work. I would sort this stuff out with them soon. Did they not realise that it was so rude to interrupt the artist in flow state? I reverted to my human form, which was a pain in the ass thing to do, but I needed a human face to offer to the crowd. I mean, they often freak out at the sign of a werewolf at a window. Hey, can you guys please give me a few minutes, please? I promise I will be right down. Just give me a few minutes. I will be there. I promise, alright? Just some time. A request I thought that was not too much to ask. I flinched in instinct. It just was the right thing to do. The window pane where my head had been downright exploded, sending plaster and concrete as shrapnel flying. I mean, those shots could have fucking killed me if they'd hit me in the head. I was only asking for a few minutes. So rude. These people have no consideration for my health at times. I was now so fucking angry. I leant out of the window. Hey! To give them a healthy rebuke and a peace of my mind. I was just trying to tell them what I felt about the lack of decency and what they'd just done. I mean, no fucking warning, and they were actually going to shoot at me. That was a step too far, in my humble opinion. Again, my preternatural senses told me not to be in fucking view, so I leapt to the floor as the aperture where the window once had been was rattled into tiny pieces by automatic fucking gunfire. I was now in the humiliating position of laying prostrate on the floor, covered in bits of plaster, metal and glass, and I wasn't feeling the fun anymore, to be honest. I mean, I was beginning to get somewhat perturbed about this whole thing as the gunfire, subsided. I looked up and paused as my world ended. You fucking, they had wrecked my work. Bullet holes scarred the wall. It was all broken and ruined. In that moment, I was destroyed. My art. Did they not realize that it was the only thing of any value in life these days? This was an utter fucker of a social catastrophe that the world was going to miss out on. The bloody and the beauty. Oh, and there was its somewhat cliched title, The Blood and the Beauty. But wait. Somehow it was, wait. No, now it was fucking perfect. I mean, if the bullet holes had caused the ruination of my piece, no, they added to the chaos of the piece, I would have to rethink that. I mean, it was a significant change of heart for me because it was, in fact, the ruination of a piece of art that was the ruination of life, which in itself was art. Deep. Blood, beauty, and bullets. The cliche of the name combined with the alliteration of the words was such a wonderful, kitschy contrast to the consummate carnage created on the canvas. I had ruined that little family and made my art show that ruin. Then the art had been further ruined by the damage done by the blast from guns. It was so much better. There was just enough time to enjoy it. It was beautiful. Truly beautiful. And the emotion caught in my throat. I mean, you monkeys could probably never draw from its significance. How could you ruin something that was already ruined? I mean, that doesn't make sense. The fantastic thing was now I had the opportunity to push the piece further. A truly wonderful thought had entered my brain. An inspiration the sirens and the authorities were in that moment. They were my muse. With how the piece had evolved in front of my eyes at its further destruction, I had been inspired to take a further step with it. The situation that had now transpired outside meant that I had been given the crafting gifts I needed to explore true ruination further. The new supply of blood was outside, lives and souls to further ruin. The ruin of the ruiners of the ruins. Wow. If I were a heavy metal musician, that would be so my album title. So I had to sit and create a new plan, or it could be a disaster. Fen smiled at me in his wolfy way and sent me his own opinion on what to do. Nah, fuck it. Let's do the usual plan. Let's wing it and just see what the fuck happens, was his unsolid advice. I would now get to work in front of a huge media presence. I knew that already. The eyes of the world would be on this block of flats at this moment. Maybe I could bring out the wolf to play live on TV, with Big Fen's permission, of course. It would be fun to see how this went, and if it went well, how on earth they were going to cover this shit show up. Fen? Uh-huh. Can we play out, please? I asked. Fen, in reply, shrugged his huge wolfy shoulders. It's really cool watching a wolf shrug. I'm sure it's difficult to imagine for you, I suppose, but it's great to actually see. Okay, well, let's not do anything too stupid today, huh? Came his response in my head. The sirens were screaming, the helicopters were making that thudding sound as their blades cut the chilled evening air. I lifted myself to a sprinter's stance, and I did a countdown from 3 in my head. On 2 I exploded towards, and then through the window, leapt and fell. Fen wasn't ready for my early departure, and all I could hear in my head were his complaints at the prank and how it was not funny. He was lying though, because it was fucking hilarious. As I cleared the window and smelt the clean fresh air after the erotic, bloody smells of the room, I suddenly had a moment of consideration and badly timed clarity. Well, what I had thought seemed like a good idea at the time, I suddenly realised was not an idea at all. It was just fucking happening. I started the 3-story drop, screaming and yelling. There was a lot of impotent rage and anger as the bullets flew past me and through me. I didn't really consider the possibility that a small army would have arrived by the time I was ready to jump. As I fell, I brought into play one of my kind of superish powers. It seems that I can sort of slow down time. I mean, time really can't slow, but time is relative, right? So I can relate to it strangely. I don't get it either, but all I can say is that I noticed a lot of little red laser dots on my body as I fell. Now, you've watched the films and played Call of Duty, so you know that these are the laser sights used to zero in by snipers. Now, thanks to my regeneratory skills and fucking toughness, I can take a shot or 6. I mean, I'm pretty fucking hard to kill, but this was ridiculous. I was covered in the little laser dots. I mean, I was lit up like a red Chloe thing by hundreds of dots. I looked like a beacon of hope, a beacon that would literally be torn apart into tiny parts when all those fuckers fired. I would be a cloud of bloody red pulp before I hit the floor. And that wasn't cool. Now, rule 1 of a werewolf is not to care. But in this case, I needed to care about the fact that I wanted to survive this moment. So remember, rule 1 is we don't care about anything except ourselves. Ah, shit, I heard from the free-falling wolf next to me. You are fucked. He was falling 4 paws upwards and seemingly lying back on an invisible couch and laughing at me in his head. At first, I was a little annoyed by this, then I realised how funny that all this had become. I looked at him and laughed. Yeah, this is going to be fun. I had no idea on earth it was going to end well, but yet again, I needed to survive this stupid situation to see how this would turn out. I prepared myself for my usual superhero landing. I know I go on about them a lot, but I do love a good superhero landing. I mean, I can shatter concrete when I land properly and then charge into the maelstrom of gunfire to commit carnage. I really can. But I changed my mind on the way down. Before landing, I quickly placed my hands behind my head and landed on my knees, hands behind my head in supplication to the authorities, a hopeful reaction that would mean that maybe I would not get riddled with gunfire. Silence fell on the mere mortals. The sirens and the helicopters kept up their blaring and blatting noise in the background, but the human noise faded away. Fen now padded up and sat down next to me. Side by side, we faced a lot of weapons, a lot of cameras, and a fuckload of humans. Well, I do not think this will go well, but let's see. Fen turned his head to mine, and our eyes met. He sighed and then laughed. I looked at the floor and laughed too. I could feel the fear that this caused in those surrounding me. Just a simple giggle at the most inappropriate of moments was probably seen as being somewhat, maybe crazy and out of the character of the situation. After what seemed like too long an amount of time and consideration, I thought I might have to say something as a reminder that they had a fucking job to do. Well, I shouted at the crowd before me. Well, is no one going to come and arrest me? I held my hands up high. I have been a bad boy and need to be punished. I mean, I've not got all the time in the fucking world. Come and get me. Fen smirked, which made me giggle a lot. I think that they may have thought I was taking the piss a little. I fucking hope so. Lay down your weapons! Came an amplified, authoritative voice over one of those Coney amplifier things you see in the movies. I looked somewhat quizzically at my raised hands and dramatically tossed the Swiss Army knife towards the crowd of police people who threw themselves to the ground as it landed. It was fucking hilarious the way that they all leapt in different directions as the little red knife with its built-in toothpick and that strange hooky thing that no one knows what the use is for hit the ground, that Fen and I just started pissing ourselves. This is silly, said my posit, but it looks like it will end up being a lot of fun. After getting myself back under control from the delight we felt, I started to feel the ADHD kick in. I don't think I have any weapons left now, I shouted. I do have pretty sore knees, though. I'm getting on, you know, so can we hurry up, please? The wolf next to me turned and gave me a quizzical look. What the fuck are you doing? Are you going to let these things take you down? I turned to look at him. A thoughtful face. I am, yeah, I replied. What the fuck? Is this going to be fun? Fen asked. I'm not sure, to be honest. Do you see these little red dots all over me? Nope, he replied. Yeah, you do, you dick, I smiled. Well, each one of those is linked to one of those high caliber sniper rifle thingies. That is an issue if we come out to play, I told him. We may end up a simple cloud of blood and snot if those things start to pop off on us, so we have to take this a wee bit carefully. I know a little bit sad and boring, my friend, but true.
Drop all your weapons,
came the annoying, amplified voice once more. We both gave the originator of the voice a good hard stare, and then looked around us in a bit of a quizzical state. I have no fucking weapons, you fucking morons. I gave up that toothpick thingy. Where do you think I've got all these weapons you keep asking about, you knobhead? It would be absurd for me to attack a group of machine guns with a Swiss Army knife, would it not? Fucking dickhead. At this point, my lovely readers, I hope the more educated of you are drawing all these links back to your great philosophers. It would hurt if I thought you're all too stupid to realise the work in this narrative. Eventually, the socially justified forces for good approached with heavy weapons trained on me in full fear. It took one man to step up and take me down, handcuffing me. Once the stupidest man had made the move to bind me, they all piled in and buried me in bodies. I think they may have been a little freaked out as I giggled at their pathetic behaviour. I would kill so many of them that this would be boring. Part 1. Captured by the police. If you would like to buy me a coffee, you can support the show in the link in the description. There's a book in the description. There's a Facebook group in the description. And you can follow me on Twitter in the description. Well, you can't follow me on Twitter on the description, but the link to the Twitter, and it doesn't matter. I'm sure you're with me on that one. I would like just to, finally say, I love you all. Please share the love. Bye.